For those of you joining in over on YouTube, getting ready to go live here on TikTok, waiting for people to come in the room. I'm trying to kind of make up for that bad live debacle I had last night. Hopefully, I have a better connection. I don't freeze and not having such weird connectivity issues. Um, was talking to TJ, so TJ should be in sometime soon. Um, for those of you joining in, just getting started, going to be talking news, politics, um, some events going on. Um, did a TikTok earlier. I think I just saw TJ jump in. TJ is one of my moderators, or my only moderator. Um, did a TikTok earlier talking about the President Joe Biden library. And every president, I believe, except for Trump, has either a library built or started. Now, I don't know if Donald Trump hadn't done anything with his because he planned on attempting to get reelected. Unknown. But they were talking about the Biden Memorial Library. TJ says because his followers can't read. That could be true. Donald Trump sees no value in a library, especially one that I believe would be open to the public for free, and he wouldn't see any royalties or profit off of. Hot Mess Express chimes in. Can we sue the U.S. government for taking away our Social Security and Medicare care that we paid into? Don't think so, but maybe. I just don't think it's actually going to go away. I think they're going to try, and I think they're going to fail. It would be disastrous if they got rid of Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. The biggest chunk of voting bloc for the Republican Party would be baby boomers and older, which almost all of the boomers are on or close to Social Security age. You start talking about taking it away, and let's say you succeed, they will never vote for Republicans again. TJ, take your time. I'm sure you'll be back when you can. So yeah, I just don't think Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid will go anywhere. Hot Mess says a ton of boomers voted for Trump. I don't understand. Well, that's the thing. They didn't either believe he would do it, because we've been hearing, for a long time. Now, I'm in my early 40s. I've been hearing since I was 18 that Social Security won't be around when I retire. So hearing people say they're going to do something to Social Security or it's going to go away, you hear that every other election cycle. So I think they might have ignored part of that. But they also, I think, were expecting that certain people who already don't qualify were going to be the ones that were punished if something was changed to it. It wouldn't be them because they'd be fine. They voted for Social Security. GP says no politician would vote against Social Security. Some Republicans are talking about it, and they view it as, when they talk about cutting entitlements, that's part of the things that they include in entitlements. They don't view it as beneficial or necessary. David says you can't count on Social Security as your main income. That's why we have savings accounts. Yeah, but the thing is, it was never meant to be like a backup plan. It was always, since they designed Social Security, it was supposed to be there. Rahmat says if you've been privileged enough to save, yeah. Reagan's the reason why a lot of people no longer have jobs that have pensions. Reagan found it was already an existing thing in the tax code, the 401k, which is a self-funded retirement plan and convinced businesses that it was better to do that than to do pensions. He is one of the reasons why pensions have gone away. Debbie says, guess who's late again? Oh, I've only been going about 5 minutes, Debbie. You're not that late. Just got started. Mary says, Social Security is our hard-earned money that we've worked for. They shouldn't touch our money. Well, that's just it. They did. GP says they need to cut off benefits to people who don't work that can or have a program to earn benefits. Well, the thing with that is, that's what Social Security disability is supposed to figure out, is if you're on disability and you're getting Social Security disability benefits, they're supposed to figure out whether or not you can work and do some kind of a job. So that's already kind of a thing. And as far as Hot Mess says, it's been proven that those on benefits truly can't work. There is hardly any fraud. There's very little. Very little. Very little fraud in Social Security. Simply because, there's going to be a little bit of fraud everywhere. The problem is everybody knows somebody who has managed to gut the system or cheat the system. And if you don't know somebody, you know somebody who knows somebody. People worked 30, 40 years and paid into it, and you say people should have saved. Yeah, that's the thing. They want to say, well, you should have saved for it. No, the whole point is it was put in place during the Great Depression to make sure people in their old age had something to take care of them at that point, that we as a society should be taking care of them. But in reality, you're taking care of yourself because you're working and paying into it. And that they shouldn't touch it. Now they're talking about it, whether they succeed or not, I don't know. They got such thin margins in both houses of Congress. It is going to be very hard to do anything. Mandatory 401k for all businesses. That's the problem with that is then you're relying on the stock market to make money. And we know the stock market's fickle. I know during the 2008 housing crisis, I know somebody that lost $750,000 in their valuation in their 401k plan. I mean, and that's just one person. Can the American people have a class action lawsuit? I don't know. I don't know how that would work. Republicans think the same about free school lunch. What if a child can afford it, eats free? Yeah, they're against any sort of potential helping anybody else because somebody who they think doesn't deserve it might benefit somehow. When was the last time Democrats had a blue wave? 2018? I wouldn't call 2018 a blue wave. I'd say last huge blue wave was probably Obama. It was during one of the elections with Obamacare. Hot Mess says, who cares if they do as long as those who need get to eat? That's kind of what they did in Minnesota. They chose to feed everybody, hoping that they will, just pay for everybody to have a school lunch, and then it's not a thing. You're not worried about it. Sarge says, it's only young people saying this. Think about your mom and dad, who you will take care of if it's cut. I've been saying that. We don't need to get rid of Social Security. It needs to stay. We need a blue wave in 2026. The longer Republicans control government, the harder it will be to fix. Yeah. Well, and with the margins they have, it'll be much easier to retake the House and the Senate in 2026, especially if they uh, do as much damage as they possibly could. I don't know how, after everything Trump and the crazies have done, we haven't seen a blue tsunami. Thought it was going to happen in 24, didn't happen. David says, in 1970, stock market was $680. Now it's at 45,000. Investing is very important. I'll just confirm that. True, but uh, that can't be the only thing you do. Government has a responsibility to the American people. So we put a system in place almost 100 years ago to make sure people had a retirement. That was Social Security. And, we should take care of them because we've had people paying in. Debbie asks, does anyone know the root of not wanting Social Security? They've been against it forever. They want more money in the hands of rich people, I guess. They don't want the workforce, they don't want the workers out of the workforce. Artie said, can they totally eliminate Social Security? It's possible. I just don't think they have the votes to do it. I think it's going to be very hard to get it through Congress because the biggest chunk of Republican voters are baby boomers and older. They're the biggest chunk and most reliable chunk. You cut that is going to be hard. Kate says, in my opinion, people on Social Security aren't getting thousands each check. It's not enough to live on. True. What do you think about M. Kalk as new chief of staff? Haven't seen anything on his new chief of staff. Hot Mess says they think people who get SSI and SSDI are lazy. They do. That's why they don't want people to have it. Yep. Ray can go on somewhere else. I'll just snag that right there. But on Ray's point, Joe Biden stood there during the State of the Union and got Republicans to admit they weren't going to cut Social Security and cheer for not cutting Social Security. He played them. David says, have a good night. Thanks for doing this. Well, thank you for joining me for the time you were here. You want to catch the entirety of the live, it will be up over on my YouTube page. There's a link in my bio. Hot Mess says, I have lupus, arthritis, and fibro and get SSDI. But people think I look fine so I can work. That's half the problem. Artie says, in my opinion, eliminating Social Security will present social unrest. Oh, yeah. That would be huge. I keep saying Republicans know they have to get reelected in 2 years. The entire House of Representatives and a third of the Senate. And some of the stuff they can't get reelected on if they do. Sarge says Trump stated he will remove anyone who depose him from the Republican Party. He can try. He can try to primary him and stuff, but the more they stand up to him, the less power he's going to actually have. And there's going to come a point when they may have to stand up and either 25th Amendment or impeach and remove him because he's a liability to them getting reelected. Debbie says, I think Republicans want us to work until we drop dead, literally. Some of them do, yes. They prefer that option. Didn't they try to do that in France? Yeah, they did. Caused massive unrest in France. And they were only trying to raise the retirement age from 65 to 67, I believe. Our retirement age is already 67 and something, and it's going to go up again. The fact we didn't have a blue wave in 2020 was ridiculous. I would say 2020 was a good year for Democrats. Realistically, they they took the House back, or they kept the House. They flipped the Senate, and they got the presidency. That was a really good year. Debbie says, "What happened in France?" Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. Uh, Basically, a general strike after they announced they were raising the retirement age for the federal pension from 65 to 67, or they were thinking about it or something, and basically led to like a major general strike. Hot mess says garbage workers in France refused to pick up garbage as protest. That was part of it. TJ got rid of Joe. Hot mess says electricians turned off power to the wealthy in protest in France. Yeah, there was a big movement in France. And the tech guys turned off the internet to the wealthy. Yeah. Did the people win in France? I believe they backed off the movement in France. But France is weird because they once again had their government collapse. There's a whole process of like shutting down their parliament, rebuilding it, and I don't completely understand French politics. I'll be honest. Theirs is a whole different ball game over there. But I think they did back off that raising the pension age over there. But I don't think it's gonna. I think they're gonna try. They're gonna probably bring something up for a vote to get rid of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and I think it's gonna fail. I think it fails completely, and then they can go to Donald Trump and say, "Hey, we don't have the votes." Sarge says a lot of retired Republicans voted for Trump. Now they will FAFO. Yeah. That's the thing. They fucked around. They're finding out. Saw an article. Debbie says, "Can you imagine if the entire working class didn't go to work and protest? It'd be something. Problem is, too many Americans can't afford to miss a single day of work." And I know a lot of employers, at least places locally here, where they still have a "we can always find somebody else" mentality, that a lot of places won't care. Oh, we lost our entire workforce for the day. That would be, well, I guess we got a whole bunch of people getting write-ups, getting terminated, etc. It would send a message, but unfortunately it would also backfire against the people who tried it. Trump got the young folks to pay attention. He did. In part because he has the appearance of a successful businessman, and he's always been able to sell himself. TJ says we need more unions. I'd agree. Unions have their benefits. They have their downsides. Debbie says, sounds like they have us between a rock and a hard place. They do. Because a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and one missed shift is the difference between paying their rent, paying their mortgage, buying food that week. It's tough. As far as the unions go, Paik says, young folks uneducated, that's why they went Trump. There's definitely a disparity there. There's a study out that says over 50% of the country reads at a 6th grade level, something like that. Debbie said they are going to crush unions under Trump. They're going to try. They want to crush union power, and this goes back to Reagan. Reagan got a lot of people to believe that unions are a bad thing, that unions, all they do is raise prices and hurt people, and that's not the case at all. Sarge said retired 72-year-old, 22-year retired Marine, and 33 retired federal employees still worried. Yeah, a lot of people are worried about what's going to happen and how it's going to go. I just don't think the votes are going to be there to get rid of Social Security, because they got to get reelected. And when Dean says a union never helped you. Do you get overtime after 40 hours of work? Are there OSHA standards? Do you get paid holidays? Those were all things that unions pushed for that ended up becoming laws nationwide. We have a lot of things we can thank unions for, even if you've never been a union member. TJ's better to speak about it than me, but I know little bit about unions. Amy says weekends off, thank unions. Yeah. Oh, Dean, you were UAW? I don't know about your specific circumstances. I just know from what I've seen from the outside in, unions have done a lot of good for this country. That they have gotten a lot of things worked into law that everybody and people who have never been a union has benefited from. Debbie says worked for a company that had a union, wasn't a part but benefited. Yeah. You end up seeing a lot of things happen because of unions. Why did unions vote for Trump when he didn't want unions at his hotels? Well, not very many unions. Only some of the unions voted for Trump. And it wasn't nearly all of them. A lot of them referred to him as a scab. West Virginia asshole says I work for one of the oldest steel unions in the country. Anna says didn't get raises until got a union. Yeah. Unions have put in and pushed for a lot of things that even non-union employees and people who have never worked for a union and never worked for a company with a union that still benefit from. You think Trump got more young folks into politics for a lot of reasons? He did. He has a way about him that people think there's a lot more there than there really is. The United States Steel, didn't they just got lied to? Something about that. Apparently, the way I understand it is they were going to get bought by Nippon Steel out of Japan. They said they need to be acquired to have like a chance at upgrading and automating and advancing and staying in business and competing and stuff. Well, Trump has now said he's going to block the sale and he wants to tariff Japanese steel, and that's going to save them. While U.S. Steel is saying, if you do that, we're going to have to lay off thousands of people because we can't compete. We need the influx of money from the acquisition to survive. And he's not listening to what they're saying. Debbie says Trump has a lot of people paying attention, mostly out of fear. Yeah. Dean says with unions where I am from, all union companies went overseas or closed down. And that's unfortunate. I know a couple companies that where people have worked for. One I worked for. They would find a reason to shut the location down if they knew you were talking about unionizing. They want to keep unions out because they would have to raise wages. And they don't want to raise wages. They don't want to add protections. They want to be able to do the bullshit they do, and skirt the law as best they can. Debbie says, "Oh, that's what happened to the steel union. I saw them talking on a panel. They were defeated and said had something. The thing I've seen has been talking about U.S. Steel and wanting to be acquired. Now maybe there's more going on, and I just haven't seen it." TJ says to Dean, "The rich always try to destroy unions. They do. People say they love Trump because he tells he tells the truth, and then when he says something, they have to explain to us what he actually meant." Norma says if they're going to make changes, they need to start with the politicians' benefits and pay. Yeah, they do. Because of course their stuff's not going to get touched. Dean says I had a grandfather that was in the Teamsters. That's awesome. Did Trump meet Prince William in France? I thought he couldn't because of his felonies. I don't know. I haven't heard one way or the other. I hadn't heard that he went to France. I hadn't heard he left the country. TJ says Joe Biden fixed their pension and it's good. Are you talking about the United Auto Workers or the Teamsters? Debbie says the steel union and pro-Palestinians are begging Biden to do something before January 20th. Well, isn't it funny? Some of the pro-Palestinian groups were big on not voting for Kamala because of the war in Israel and protesting the violence in Palestine. And now Donald Trump's coming in and they want Joe Biden to do something to help save Palestine. Well, you had the option to do something to save Palestine. It was vote for Kamala. What can Biden do? Not sure. Politicians make their own laws about how much they can receive. One, their pay average. Yes. However, there's a little bit of a caveat to that. 27th Amendment says that they cannot give themselves a pay raise. They can no longer do that. Congress can vote in a pay raise, but it doesn't start until the next Congress. So if January 3rd, when this upcoming Congress takes office, if they vote in a raise, that will not take effect until January 3rd of 2027. Mr. McBee says, worked in IT my entire life, never had the opportunity to join a union. I would have joined. I haven't worked in any fields that have had a union either, but I would have joined. There's a lot of protections that unions have. Now, I know some people who have been in a union job that have said, hey, it's not great. Some of the worst employees get saved by the union. And they're people that, without the union wouldn't have a job still. But that's the thing about the union. They fight for everybody, regardless. Debbie says, I thought the House put a raise in a spending bill last Congress. They might have. But per the 27th Amendment, that raise will start January 3rd into the next Congress. So it can't affect the 2-year Congress that it gets passed in. Congress is considered a new Congress every 2 years on January 3rd, every odd year. And then the raise goes into effect the next January 3rd of an odd year. They can vote it in, and if they all win their re-election, they get the raise. But the reason it was passed was because there was a time in the 90s? Early 90s, I think? They were passing multiple raises a year that were taking effect immediately. Like, it was getting insane for a little bit. Um, and that was also the last time the Constitution's been amended. It hasn't been amended since I think it was in the 90s. It was either, I think it was the early 90s. It is very hard to amend that. They were passing out raises like candy, pretty much. And that's what led to them passing it. The weird thing about that amendment, in my opinion, it takes 2/3 of both chambers of Congress to pass an amendment. And then it takes 38 states to agree to that amendment before it gets added. It's weird that Congress actually passed something that limited its own ability in a way. Now, this was a good thing if you ask me, but the fact that they did it is kind of unusual. Normally, Congress doesn't like to limit their own power in any way, shape, or form. Donald Trump is the only man that can do things he does, and people make excuses. They make excuses all the time, and they bend themselves into knots trying to explain away some of it. You know, trying to say, well, you're not a convicted felon until you're sentenced, or you're not, oh, he really isn't convicted, or this or that. They will tie themselves into knots making excuses for this guy, or they will try to tell us what he means when we play back what he said, his words verbatim. He didn't say that. He didn't mean that. It's mind-boggling how they can hear him say the words and they don't want to believe it. Debbie says they don't need raises. They make it up with dark money and insider trading. Yeah, that needs to be addressed. We got too much government money, or not government money. We got too much big money in Congress, lobbying money, things like that. And that's a problem. Same with insider trading. Sarge says, what do you think about Biden pardoning his son? I think Biden did what he had to do. They spent 5 years digging into Hunter Biden, and they dug into Hunter for 5 years. The best they could come up with was lying on a gun form, which 98% of people don't get charged with, ever, and not filing his taxes appropriately when he had already filed the missing tax forms and paid back the balances due plus all penalties and interest. Again, most people wouldn't be charged for that. That was the best they could do. And they had already been set for him to get a plea deal for a misdemeanor with the charges to be dropped after serving sentence, etc. And Republicans in Congress pressured the special counsel to ignore that plea deal, withdraw it, and go harder after Hunter Biden. Joe Biden didn't have a choice to do anything but pardon Hunter, because they were going to continue to go after him and continue to make his life more difficult. This was Joe's last chance at protecting Hunter. Now, if Kamala Harris had won, you wouldn't have seen that pardon at all. Dean says Trump isn't going to be a felon. I believe all that was made up anyway. No, he was convicted, 34 felony charges. And the dumb thing is, with those 34 felony charges, it was him how he paid non-disclosure money to Stormy Daniels about their affair. If he would have wrote it in his ledger, non-disclosure payment, and done it the proper way, there would have been no felonies. But he tried to be slick and call it legal fees and then write it off as a tax deduction. They think him as a second coming of Reagan, so they make excuses. In a way, they do. They do think Trump is like Reagan. He's probably their last greatest president in their mind. And Democrats are probably going to be in charge for a while. I wonder how distracting the base with Hunter will work when the economy crashes. And that's just it. When it hits them and bites them in the pocketbook, it is going, no amount of distractions with Hunter is going to be able to distract them, I don't think. They're worried about their day to day living, and that's what's going to hurt them the most. TJ Matthew says that TJ, he's not convicted and sentenced of anything. He's not currently a felon. That is not true. Donald Trump has been convicted of 34 felonies. He has not been sentenced, and that sentencing is currently on indefinite delay. But he is a convicted felon 34 times over. Sarge says he lost his wife in a car crash, son to cancer. His old child left along with his daughter. Sarge, I think you're slightly wrong there about Biden. He lost his wife and his daughter in that car crash, I believe, and his son to cancer. I believe he only has Hunter left. Debbie says Trump is about to show his base what a real weaponized government looks like. Every accusation coming from them is an admission. I say that because I had someone say he's the best president since Reagan. It's wild. Yeah, they believe he's the best president since Reagan, which is beyond me. They think Reagan and Trump should be like 1 and 2 for greatest of all time. And when a lot of historians put Donald Trump at number 40, what would he be? 45? Yeah, 45th worst of all time. We've had 46 counting Joe Biden. Well, we've had 46 presidents. 45 people have held the office. And Donald Trump is rated 45 out of 45. He is rated below William Henry Harrison, whose only claim to fame was giving a 3-hour speech in the rain on Inauguration Day, catching pneumonia, becoming bedridden and ill, and dying. TKS Daddy says that anyone who matches Trump's 1.28 GPA would be a good submariner. What's the crime? He lied on his bank books in his business records. If he would have wrote down the money that he paid to Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet about their affair as NDA payment, there would have been no crime. But what he did was he wrote it down in there. Well, first he had Michael Cohen pay Stormy Daniels' attorney and call that payment legal fees. It wasn't legal fees. Then they worked out a way to repay Michael Cohen. Again, in his ledgers, he wrote it down as legal fees. It wasn't legal fees. And then he was able to declare him as a tax break and all that kind of stuff. If he just would have called it a non-disclosure payment, there would have been no crime. Dean says a felon can't run for election, so how does that work? Yeah, you can, because there's only 3 requirements to be president of the United States. You have to be 35 years old, you have to be American citizen, and you have to be not having served 2 terms as president. Those are the only requirements to be president of the United States, because nobody ever thought anybody would ever nominate a felon. Matthew says TJ the plumber, he has not been convicted by a jury. Yes, he was. He was convicted by a jury in D.C. Or not D.C., New York. Republicans hate celebrities, and then they blame celebrities. Or then they elect celebrities. Yeah. But Trump's presidency, every action should be thrown out as actions of a foreign agent. Oh, makes sense. Frank T said that knocked out one who was for 8 years. I don't know what you mean there. TKS says Trump's 2010 corporate felony conviction laundering Russian mob money is a matter of record, but it's corporate. Yeah, the Trump organization's gotten convicted of felonies too. And who runs the Trump organization? Donald Trump, the boss. Ms. Singleton says, well, the way Obama's speech went yesterday sounds like something ain't right in the water. I have not seen that speech. I'll have to check it out. Debbie said, did you see the Russian soldiers celebrating Trump's win? Have not seen it. I've heard about it. TKS says, sadly, our DOJ is lazy and personal responsibility against corporate crimes. Yeah, they're very lazy about that. I've been ranting about our DOJ, specifically under Merrick Garland, quite a bit. If Merrick Garland had got off his ass and done anything, and started the investigation when he took office January 20th, 2021, and actually started looking into Donald Trump wouldn't have been running in 2024. Jules said, did you hear they found the backpack of the CEO gunman? It had Monopoly money in it? No, I hadn't heard that. Debbie says, you've got to watch that video. He said Trump is a Russian asset. Can't wait until January 20th. Yeah, they've been saying that a lot, that he's a Russian asset. Eric says, do you like to eat? As a farmer feeding America, we needed Trump. Do you remember what happened last time he was in office? He got into a trade war pissing contest with China, and we had crops rotting in the fields. And his next round of trade wars is going to be bad for farmers. Not to mention all of the deportations that he wants to do. If he's able to carry them all out, they will end up, not having people to work the fields to pick the crops. So it doesn't matter. Debbie says, when our enemies celebrate Trump, that's a huge problem. Very much so. TKS says, CEO who used AI to 90% of valid elderly claims assassinated. Yeah, I heard that. That was, I don't know if that was anything to do with, I'll get him. If that had anything to do with why he was attacked, no idea. Nikki says, not sure if you talked about this yet. China cut $600 billion in trade from us. I hadn't heard that number yet. I know they pulled a bunch of the rare earth minerals that we use in defense systems and computer chips and all kinds of stuff, and said we can't import them in response to the proposed tariffs. Well, if the whole point of the tariffs was to make it here, but we need to import the item to make it here, and now we can't buy the item, how does that work? Let's see. Debbie says, wait, did someone say Trump is good for farmers? Wow, yeah. Makes no sense. Vicatory says, you must, to Eric, who's already blocked, you must be a billionaire. There's literally the only people that Dumpster bothers with. Exactly. Nikki says, in addition to rare earth, they said it today. Oh, so that's a new thing. I hadn't seen that yet. That they're cutting $600 billion more in trade. He's not even in office yet, and he's already on his way to crashing the economy. Robert says, Trump is way smarter than all of y'all put together. Y'all still won't figure it out. No, I read it above a 6th grade level, thank you. I saw you did that, TJ. I hope the media goes after Vance, unlikely what they did with Trump. Oh yeah, when they're going to go hard after him. I think they're starting to realize they fucked up. When it is bad enough that they are losing such a big percentage of their market share, you got Morning Joe going and on air and yelling at his fan base for not tuning in enough because the ratings are down so bad. Uh, let's see. Debbie says Trump can't read, speak, or go to the bathroom on his own. Yeah, pretty much. Nikki says apparently the education bill will allow the higher ed loans, so there is a win. Uh, hadn't heard that, but that would be a win. What about the steel worker that endorsed him? Oh, I don't know about that. I think some of them are feeling betrayed by him because now he wants to block the sale of U.S. Steel to Nippon Steel, which is something that U.S. Steel is saying they need to stay open, and they don't like the way it's going. They will go after Vance, especially when if Trump gets kicked out of office because of ratings. I hope so, but mainstream media is in the FAFO stage as well. They're in the find out stage. They fucked around with this election, and they're finding out as people are turning into alternatives. People, you know, like me, which I know I'm a small creator here on TikTok. There are other bigger creators. They're turning into podcasts. They're turning into Midas Touch. Debbie says that TJ, you're awesome. I don't know how y'all deal with this Trump humpers. Thanks for keeping the chat safe. Yeah, TJ does a great job. And uh, I actually met TJ through the Rational Boomer, and he moderates for the Rational Boomer. I saw him pop in one day, and I'm like, hey, TJ, got a favor to ask of you, and I made him a moderator. And he's been kicking their ass ever since. Sarge says all poor educated states, 6th and 7th grade educations, mainly why they voted for Trump. Yeah. Nikki says, we love picking your brain. Soon there'll be too much to cover. Well, I hope it's not that much, but I'll do what I can. Debbie says, I saw a clip of Morning Joe and they were losing it. Yelling at their viewers isn't a good look. No, it's not. Jules says it appears Vance is the new water boy and Alania is the new first lady. Up until the point when Musk and Trump butt heads because they're too similar in personality, and Musk will be the one gone because he can't replace Donald Trump. Trump is the president. U.S. Steel, TKS says, U.S. Steel is convoluted by any measure. Bought Granite City Steel, it's most efficient for buyout. Are you saying Granite City Steel should buy U.S. Steel or the other way around? How many of them are Republican or independents that are turning out of the mainstream media? Probably independents and a lot of left-leaning people. Most of the Republicans are stuck to Fox. Brian is saying Elon is president, not Trump. I'm telling every MAGA that. That's hilarious. Oh, TKS says U.S. Steel closed shifts at Granite City Steel to look worst. Okay. Vicatory says hit the likes, guys. Well, thank you. I appreciate the likes. TL Red says his TikTok's gonna get shut down. Well, it's complicated, but The DC Circuit Court of Appeals has said that the TikTok ban is currently um, constitutional. They said they looked at it, they don't see a problem. Well, TikTok is appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court, and U.S. Supreme Court could take it. They could grant an injunction. They could grant a stay and say, well, we're not doing anything until we hear the case, and that could kick the can down the road a year or two. Come January 19th, President Biden can grant a 90-day extension of the TikTok ban, which would extend out the sale date by when they have to do anything by 90 days. Then Donald Trump comes in. He says he doesn't want to ban TikTok. So they would have to pass something through Congress to reverse the TikTok ban, but they could. Here, it's kind of funny. At the time when the TikTok ban went into effect, it was pushed by Republicans, not really as much for national security, but because they attached it to some spending bills that involved foreign aid, and they thought Democrats wouldn't vote for the foreign aid. So they pushed this on there. Well, then Democrats voted for it. I think Democrats had planned that what would happen is they win all both chambers of Congress and the presidency in November, and they just reverse it. But once again, Democrats delaying things and trying to play games could end up costing us. Debbie says neither Trump and Musk are loyal. They are both narcissists. What could go wrong? Yeah, they are going to butt heads with each other. TKS says Granite City Steel was the smallest of three most efficient. Close shifts to boost a buyout from Gov. I knew none of that, but I believe you're probably right. Nikki asks, why is Elon in France? No idea. Didn't know he was in France. TKS, let's hope they keep him, which is Musk in France. That'd be funny. There are security issues with Trump and free speech. Yeah, TL Red says, are they shutting down TikTok? I was talking about that. But the TikTok thing is, if they if the ban does go in effect, it won't be an immediate it's gone. It would be just removed from app stores and no longer allowed to get updates. Musk has been traveling internationally making backroom deals. Maybe. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's not making backroom deals. Nikki says Musk was at Notre Dame with Trump and FLOTUS. I hadn't heard that, but probably was. No idea why they were in France. TKS says they'll probably be getting it on new devices. It would. The problem would be getting it not just on new devices, but keeping it updated on your current device. It would be dying a slow death. And there's some question as to whether or not, like, once it's unavailable in the App Store, if American creators would still be able to post content on TikTok, things like that. And eventually, we wouldn't be able to post any content. They probably wouldn't be able to pay American creators anymore. That kind of stuff. TKS says, but as Reels and Shorts, TikTok would be available on other apps. Well, and that's the thing. All these apps have a shelf life. They eventually go away. They get replaced. And there'll be something else. Some people are saying there may be something that TikTok is trying to do with Lemonade as a way of backdooring everything into a new app, which is entirely possible, and then they would have to start all over. Who knows? I'm just going to keep doing my videos, doing my lives, and hope for the best. Debbie says, I saw your video on TikTok earlier. I'm just waiting on the Supreme Court now. Yeah, I think the Supreme Court's going to take this because, as far as I know, we've never had a case where the U.S. government, by rule of a law, has targeted a single business and forced a sale like that. There's been times when they've broken up a monopoly or something and forced it to get split into multiple companies, but I don't think we've ever had a single company as the sole focus of a law that says you must do this thing by this point or you won't be allowed to do business in America anymore. I don't know. There's a lot of issues there. There's free speech issues. I think the Supreme Court's going to take it and it'll probably get delayed. Nikki says people who use VPNs are saying just switch your country, but that won't work for people who get paid. I think there's something to that because I don't think that they will, that like VPNs would allow you to see content. Like if I post, I don't know if you would be able to still post content through a VPN and reach the same group of people. I've never tried it. Scott says this is the only social media I follow. Hopefully it stays. I hope it does too. But for those of you that want to keep following me and like my content, I do post everything over on YouTube. And I'm going to, just keep posting my stuff wherever I can. And try to get whatever message I can out. TKS says, I hope they're actually smart enough. The main issue is base code directly related to Origin apps. Yeah, I used to know a lot more about coding than I do now. But the problem is you had people writing this law who didn't even understand what they were talking about. I remember there was a clip of one of the guys saying, so if I have TikTok on my phone at home and I'm connected to my Wi-Fi, can TikTok access my Wi-Fi? Like I think the question he was going for was probably something more like, can they access all my other devices, things like that. But it is like the way he was phrasing it made him sound completely stupid. When did Republicans stop believing in small government? Sounds like they never meant what they said. That's the Republican Party for you. They've been hypocrites going back to Reagan. Be nice if we had a federal agency smart enough. Oops, federal judges are now the agency. Yeah, with the fall of the Chevron doctrine, when there's gaps in laws, now it's judges can decide if the federal agency made the right decision when filling in those gaps. How did the Democratic Party go from the New Deal to be center moderates? I don't know. How did they go from being the supporters of civil rights to center moderates? That's why I've been saying the next candidate in 2028 needs to run on a New Deal style platform. Debbie says Chevron doctrine. What's that? There was a Supreme Court case that stood for over 40 years involving Chevron, the oil company. And there was some gap in the law, basically. And I think it was the EPA filled in the gap of what the law said. And the Supreme Court 40 years ago ruled that in the Chevron case that the agencies themselves are best suited to figure out the proper way to implement the law if Congress doesn't specifically say how. And it got brought up in a Supreme Court case that was heard this year where there were some fishing boats that had to have these monitors on them. Them having the monitors wasn't the issue. The question was always who paid for them. And I believe it was the EPA, might have been the Department of Natural Resources, said that the fishing boats, the fishing companies had to pay for these moderators or whatever, these overseers. Well, they sued saying it's costing us too much money. We're not arguing that we need them, but the regulators need to be paid for by the government, not us, because they're the ones requiring it. And that's when it came back to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, well, that the law is unclear, and it's not in the best interest anymore of, Chevron was decided wrong. The EPA or any of the departments can't decide which way is best anymore. The courts can have more decision-making power, basically. Republicans favor unelected officials controlling you when they say they are pro-small government. Yeah, they're only in favor of it if those controls are in their favor and they lean toward Christianity. TKS Daddy says 40K in Germany is better than 70K US. Social programs should be social. $1 saline average is 1,000 because insurance only gets a percentage. Yeah. TJ says if you want to win elections in the future, that's the persona they're going to have to take. That's an unfortunate reality. Going farther left anymore. Jules says have a good night. Well, you too. If you want to catch the rest of the live, it will be up over on my YouTube channel sometime tomorrow. Analytical Iowan on YouTube. There is a link in my bio. I post all my lives over there, so even if you don't catch any of it, you can always catch my live and what we discuss here. TKS says Boris head poisoning right now is because of self-regulation, Trump-based, like train brakes. Exactly. Deregulation hurts people. The regulations come about because something bad happened, and now we had to fix it. OSHA rules, OSHA regulations, safety issues, all come about because these companies wouldn't do the things out of the goodness of their heart. We had to pass something to make it happen. And, Donald Trump wants to deregulate everything. Again, depending on how much he gets done with the deregulation and stuff, and there's quite a bit he can do with executive order. He got rid of a whole ton of regulations the last time he was in office. Because he thinks it's just red tape that's just gumming up the works and making it hard to do business. He doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. Sometimes I think Republicans vote on buzzwords, deregulations, drill, baby drill, etc. Oh, they do. The cause of the poisoning was truly horrible and not caught because of non-regulated self or other. Yeah. TJ got rid of Tom. But Tom says, wow, stop crying. Who's crying? I'm explaining. It's funny how they always come in and they say things like, oh, the liberal tears, but there are no liberal tears. Just explanations. It's just explanations they don't like. Don says he even wants to get rid of the FDIC. Are you kidding me? Hadn't heard about the FDIC going away. I heard about the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau going away, or they want to. But it wouldn't surprise me. FDIC came about because of 1929 and the stock market crash. We found out that you got to insure the banks. You got to have something protecting people's money inside the banks and looking over the banks to make sure they're solvent, to making sure that people aren't going to lose their life savings when they trust a financial institution. But Donald Trump would want to get rid of that to make his uh, billionaire buddies who have stocks in the banks and things, and to make things easier for his rich friends to borrow money. Um, Republicans vote based on buzzwords like small government, make America great, America first. Yeah, they love the buzzwords. TJ says, of course he does. The more money can be stolen. Talk about the FDIC. Yeah, exactly. Um, the FDIC protects a lot of people. And under any run, U.S. banks really are not solving. Um, Trump said, or Don says he and Elon want the crypto. Yeah. Oh, I did a TikTok earlier about this. Apparently, there is a Republican senator from Wyoming, Lupus, I think is her name. Lupus, something like that. Is introducing a bill. They want they want to force the federal government to buy 1,000,000 Bitcoin. At current prices, that's $100 billion. And they want to not only buy 1,000,000 Bitcoin, but they want to force the government to sit on it for 20 years and hope it just gains momentum and makes us a ton of money. Really? The federal government needs to buy crypto? That legitimizes it for one, when it's already just a fringe thing. I don't know too many people who are really heavily involved in crypto. It's still one of the biggest things that lead to people getting scammed. And it's only been around for 15 years, and they want the government to hold on to it for 20. It could be worthless in 20 years. All it's doing is transferring taxpayer money to people who have invested in crypto and costing us money. Plus, because we operate at a deficit, we have to borrow money to pay our bills all the time, which means we would be borrowing the money to pay, for the crypto. And then we have to pay the interest on the loan to borrow the money to pay for the crypto. So it has to gain enough value in 20 years to pay off the principal of that loan, plus 20 years of interest. And we got to hope it's worth enough at that point. It's entirely moronic. Because the buzzwords they say don't make sense when you think about it. Yeah, that's because he's going after people who think at about a 6th grade level. And it's worse. Elon started promoting Dogecoin, a knockoff profiteering for the position. Yeah. Yeah, Department of Government Accountability already exists. The Department of Government Efficiency does not, and it probably never will. Don says, makes me want to put my IRA under my pillow. I've heard people say that. Debbie says, Dogecoin, I haven't heard about that. Dogecoin was a knockoff Bitcoin that came out several years ago. Had it was about a dog or something. It's supposed to be kind of like crypto. And it was only started about a month ago. Okay, well, that's the second one. I know there was one a while back that was also Dogecoin about a dog, but now he started another one. Lots of people lost a ton of money. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. These crypto things is uh, they're nothing. The way I understand it is there's a way to figure out a number in a chain, and that number is like once you find it, you can't find it again or something. I don't know. I don't know all the details behind Bitcoin. I thought it was dumb when they were talking about it when it came out 15 years ago. And then now that you can't replicate it, there's only supposedly so many of these numbers out, and you know, it's supposed to be the revolution in money. It'd be no different than if I came up with these glass, if I bought a whole bunch of glass beads and convinced a bunch of people that they're uh, worth something. People are only bought in on it because other people have bought in the idea that it's worth something. Uh, the sad thing from lifetime purchases, credit cards make over 100,000 from each of us. I'd believe it. And right now, we're still under the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which at least gives us some protections at what they can charge us for fees, what they can charge us for interest, how they can charge us for interest, all those kind of things, how they can word their card applications. And when these places screw us over and commit fraud, they can go after them and sue them and get back payments for American consumers, like the $1.8 billion that is going to be returned to American consumers over creditrepair.com and Lexington Law over over their credit repair services. TKS says Ukraine already has. We should have a national electronic banking, no charge. That would be interesting. Like one bank where everybody has their accounts. That could be interesting. Get rid of all the individual banks. Meanwhile, credit companies are arranged with time of checks and payments to wreck your credit. Yeah, and the whole credit score thing is kind of a thing too, because one negative thing can crash your score 50 to 100 points. One positive thing might only raise it 2 or 3. Trump thinks Bitcoin is real coins like leprechauns with their gold. Yeah, you're right. TKS says Debbie checked Trump's grades. He has trouble with 3-syllable words. Debbie says, oh, I saw your video about that. Those credit repair services are paying back customers, right? They're paying back something. It's not all of it. The one article I saw on it said it's like $420 a customer if everybody gets an equal payout. But the article didn't say what kind of payout everybody who was affected was going to get. I don't know if it's going to be like, well, if it was like so much per month, so much per year you were subscribed to it, or whatever. But they never really fixed anybody's credit, and they were taking $30+ a month. TKS says Debbie Trump's Fordham grades were literally 1.28 GPA. Only thing lower than is English stats. Trump selling gold coins is hilarious. He thinks he's the greatest president. He does. Oh no, he thinks on the ranking of historically great presidents, he should be up 1, 2, or 3, probably 1. He believes that. Historians currently rank him at 45 out of 45. We have had 46 presidents. 45 people have been president. Grover Cleveland served 2 non-consecutive terms. That's why it's off by 1. And Donald Trump will be the 47th, which will make us off by 2 permanently. But they routinely rank him 45 out of 45. He's ranked lower than Herbert Hoover, who crashed the economy during the stock market crash. Well, Wasn't entirely him, but he didn't do anything to fix the economy. He said the economy will fix itself. And he's ranked lower than William Henry Harrison, who his only claim to fame is he got pneumonia after giving a 3-hour speech in the rain on Inauguration Day and dying. That's it. That was his presidency. He lived for a month as president. Vicatori says, yet they think their Jesus is the best thing since sliced bread. Oh, they do. They think he is the absolute greatest. Second coming of Reagan. We're talking, best Republican president ever. Was in the live of another creator where he was talking about like the most polarizing presidents or something. And they couldn't understand why Trump would be on that list because Trump is so great. He's not polarizing. Everybody should love Trump. Does he really believe that or does he just say it? I know the supporters believe it. No, he believes it. He 100% believes he is the smartest person in the room all the time. 100%. Based on the number of times he has said things like, he was talking about NATO. He said he didn't know what NATO was before he became president the first time, but he learned everything he needed to know about NATO in 2 minutes. He believes he is like the absolute smartest man in the world. That he, when he thinks of something that nobody else has thought of. What's with Trump's handshakes over in France? So weird. Didn't see him. I hadn't seen, till I went on the live, I hadn't heard he was even in France. Republican presidents have been getting worse for years. Yeah, I really thought George W. Bush was going to be the dumbest president I would ever see in my lifetime. And I am ashamed to admit I voted for him. I voted for George W. Bush in 2004. In part because messaging coming from Democrats. John Kerry didn't end up telling me anything that made sense. The only thing I heard out of what Kerry was saying was, "I'm not Bush," and that didn't resonate with me. I was waiting for anything that made some sense. Policies, etc. Didn't really hear it. So I voted for Bush. Never should have. 4 years later, out of John McCain, I heard, basically, I'm going to continue to do what I needed to, what he was going to continue everything Bush did. And I just heard, I'm going to do more of the same. And then I heard Obama talking about change, and I heard ideas, and things made sense. So I voted for Obama. I have voted for when it comes to president, I have voted Democrat, Republican, Independent. And I will say this, I have never once regretted voting for a Democrat. TKS says Trump literally has a 73 vocabulary IQ, D plus English, F stats. Yeah. He has only ever been able to convince people that he is good with money. Terrence says that includes problems with comprehension. I think he's talking about Donald Trump's grades and IQ. DC Chess says you must vote for the man. No, I didn't vote for Trump. I have never voted for Donald Trump. I was smarter than that. Vicatory says he isn't even good with money, though. No, he's not. But he's convinced people he's good with money. Because even when he runs his companies into the ground, he works it in such a way that he gets a big windfall out of it. He goes bankrupt, 6 times. Debbie says, 6 times bankrupt. I'll never believe he's good with money. Not good with his money or anyone else's. Well, yeah. He's a con. Trump supporters think Barron should be president. They think his entire family should be president. Well, here's the thing about Barron. They got to wait about 20 years for Barron Trump to be eligible. And by that point, the MAGA movement, Donald Trump's most ardent supporters, they're going to be inconsequential. And even if he tried to run, he wouldn't get anywhere. For 30 years, New York told people the truth about Donald Trump. Why did no one listen? Because they didn't want to. They believed the showman. And a show like The Apprentice didn't help. Serial domino bankruptcies. Literally the worst businessman in history. 10 billion curse. Yeah. Oh, he's horrible. He's convinced that he's a great businessman. He's made this impression, but oh, is he awful. Has his daughter showed up yet? I don't think so. I don't think she's going to be part of this incoming administration at all. Trump couldn't even stay on $1/3 billion allowance to keep his bankers out of jail. Yeah. I don't honestly think anyone in his family would attempt to run. Yeah, I don't think so either. After he wrecks the economy with this term, and as bad as it could be, the name Trump's going to be not worth anything in politics. Vicatory says yes, but I can't fathom why anyone would vote for him. They bought the glitz and the glamour, and they believe everything he says about being an outsider and draining the swamp, and he has convinced them to believe that Democrats are elites. And part of that is because Democrats speak at a higher IQ level. Donald Trump speaks at a 6th grade level-ish. His supporters read and comprehend at a 6th grade level. So because he sounds like them, they bought into all of the bullshit. Randall says, watch with you. You sound like one of those angry Democrats. They're so angry. I'm only speaking the truth. Pachuca says, I keep praying that he will think of doing good because of his legacy. Oh, he don't care. He's convinced that what he does will help his legacy. It is going to be very hard for him to convince him that any of this is bad for his legacy because he believes he's the smartest person in the room. TKS says closer to 3rd grade. Trump literally stumbles at 3-syllable words. Yeah. Terrence says they have a nephew who has some of the same disabilities as Trump. Yeah. Asylum. Trump thinks it means nut house. He doesn't understand the concept that the same word, written out word, may have multiple definitions because English is a weird language. TKS says, once Trump said they were sending people from insane asylums, he had to double down. Well, that's what he does with everything. Remember Sharpie Gate? With the hurricane that was never going to hit Alabama, and then when it didn't hit Alabama, he ended up having to draw the map with a Sharpie to show that that's what he was shown. And Frank and Beans can go worry about what bathroom people are going into later. Debbie says, yeah, he thinks immigrant visas are us giving them credit cards. Yeah, probably. He probably hears visa and thinks that's what it is. Frank's already been blocked, but he said, I feel the blue hair group are angry because they can't be using random bathrooms anymore. And I kind of said this a couple different times. I believe that when they think of a trans person, and you only ever hear them talk about trans women, never trans men, the women who have become men. Only trans women. I believe that they think all trans men are like Klinger from MASH, just doing it because they don't understand any of it at all. Terrence says, the odd thing, my nephew, with all of his disabilities, is good with money. Well, that's a good thing. Glad he's not like Trump with money. That would be horrible. Pachuca says, I couldn't believe we showed up at Notre Dame. Yeah, I heard that when I went live. I hadn't heard that he was at Notre Dame. So I'll have to look into that and probably do a video on it tomorrow. Debbie said he said we give them visas and put them in fancy hotels. Yeah, because he doesn't understand what a visa is. He thinks it's a credit card like we talked about a little bit ago. James says Republicans did not vote to release Matt Gaetz report. Will he now be the AG? No. He has withdrew his name completely from consideration. Because like 30 Republican senators said they would vote no for him if he was the nominee. Donald Trump has named Pam Bondi, the former Republican Attorney General for Florida, as his Attorney General nominee. Now, she may have... I don't know a lot about her. She's going to have to go through the confirmation process, too. We'll see how that plays out. But Matt Gaetz will not be the Attorney General because if he tried, that report would be made public, and he doesn't want it. There's something in there that is not just against Matt Gaetz, but that is bad about the rest of the Republicans. Probably for how long they knew how bad Matt Gaetz was and how they didn't do anything. Debbie says they don't understand and they lack curiosity to try to understand. Talking about Republicans. And that's true with a lot of them. They lack the curiosity to figure anything out. They really do. They want comfort. They want to believe the things they want to believe and go from there. GoFish says Mr. Trump is just an old bully and Elon Musk fix the election. Everyone will see it. Well, I would love to see it if they do. If they have something and they can prevent him from becoming president, I would love to see it. I don't know what would potentially happen, but I would love to see the evidence. What about Green? Are they going to kick her out? I don't know. She's got a personality that just grates on everybody. So it wouldn't surprise me if she pissed on them enough that they kick her out. James, I voted to keep the report sealed. I was hoping it would be released. I was too. As far as are there more people being complicit, it's more that they knew and just didn't do anything. I'm not saying like that they helped him or anything. I think that's what's in there more than anything is that these reports are several years old. So don't know, but it's not going to see the light of day, and that's unfortunate. TKS says Russia breached the RNC and the DNC, and only the DNC info came out. Been thinking about that. And I think that's part of why a bunch of them The Republicans flipped from being hard never Trumpers to backing Trump. There was some data they got a hold of excuse me. They got a hold of some data, and now they've been using it as blackmail evidence. And I bet you at least some of it, half this country wouldn't care about. Vicatory says, my friend Marcus Flowers ran against her. He lost because Forsyth is still racist as hell. Yeah, I'd believe it. Pachuca says, I heard that Biden might pardon Trump. I hadn't heard that. I heard there were some Democrats trying to force Biden or convince Biden to pardon Trump. I hadn't heard that he was actually considering it. I think it would be a bad move. And I don't disagree with Joe Biden on a lot of things. But if he pardons Trump, I would really disagree with him. And I think that would hurt his legacy, kind of like how Ford pardoning Nixon hurt his legacy. If Jane Doe case info needs to be read, a doctor on here has more legal authority. I don't know what you're talking about. Debbie says, I heard Dems and Republicans were trying to pressure Biden to pardon Trump. There were some, and that was in part in response to the pardon of Hunter. They're saying Joe should just go ahead and pardon Trump for the good of the country so we can move past all of this. And move on. Debbie says, I hope he doesn't do that. I don't even want to see Biden or Harris at the inauguration. I think they both will be. I think they're both going to show up to the inauguration because that's the tradition. We've always had a peaceful transfer of power, and that's what our country does. They're not going to sulk off and go hide in defeat like Donald Trump did. I just think they're going to do what Democrats always do and take the high ground. But I think come 2028, when I'm assuming a Democrat wins the White House, if Donald Trump is still president at that time, up until the new president takes the oath of office, I don't anticipate Donald Trump being there for the next inauguration. I fully expect him to do what he did last time and slink off home. That's if he is even around at that point. There's a good chance he doesn't live the 4 years through his presidency. There's a good chance that he just doesn't make it, that he gets 25th Amendmented with J.D. Vance becoming president, or they have to impeach and remove him because he's that problematic for Republicans in Congress. Ultimately, they know they have to get reelected. Donald Trump is not able to. Debbie says, I couldn't watch the video of Biden welcome Trump into the White House. It made my stomach turn. Yeah, I agree. Pachuca says there are some sick people on the Republican side. Very much so. They will make conspiracies of JD taking out Trump. Oh, yeah. If something happens, Trump doesn't live all 4 years and he dies or becomes medically incapacitated and Vance has to use the 25th or something, the conspiracy theories surrounding all of it is going to be bad from the Republican side. But a big chunk of the MAGA base will probably never vote Republican ever again because they only want to vote for people named Trump. And not Trump Jr. or Barron. They only really want to vote for Donald. Pachuca says, my boss thinks he's the strongest man. Yeah, exactly. They believe the weirdest things about Trump. Terrence says, pardon Trump, run the risk of repeating the Trump era and allow criminals to hold the POTUS. Yeah. Um, and part of the reason why we have the problem with Trump that we had, even him getting elected the first time, we didn't know how bad he was going to be, sure. But part of the problem goes back to Ford pardoning Nixon. Kind of set the standard that, okay, well, if the president does it, even if it's not legal, for the good of the country, you pardon them. No. That's why I hope Joe Biden doesn't pardon Donald Trump. And if Joe Biden would happen to pardon Donald Trump, I will be on here calling him out on it because I don't agree with it. Debbie says, I know it's wrong, but I'll definitely hype a JD and Republican took out Trump conspiracy. I would too. Probably want to go a couple more minutes here. They hate Mike Pence for not participating in Trump's coup. Expect the same thing if Trump doesn't make it. Oh, yeah. That's why I don't think Vance... The only chance Vance has is Donald Trump making it his entire term and acknowledging that he is ineligible to run again and endorsing Vance to be the next president. That's the only chance he has to win as a Republican. They make him sound normal, like he's just kidding all the time. Yeah, one of the guests on the Rational Boomer podcast is Will, and he refers to that as sane washing. Whereas JV, Ben, you've only seen Elon with Trump. That's probably what you're going to see a lot of out of Donald Trump. You aren't going to see them in the same place hardly ever. I don't know if they would have lost. I guarantee you Trump would have blamed JD. I don't think Trump wanted JD on his ticket at all. And I don't think he likes JD Vance that much. Meanwhile, he has been cruel his whole life, and apparently Barron has the same tendencies. Hadn't heard that about Barron, but it wouldn't surprise me. Behaviors like that are not innately part of the human condition. They're learned. Debbie says JD and Trump don't like each other. JD is vice president because of money. Oh, yeah, I'd believe it. Do I think Liz Cheney's going to run next time? Might. Would obviously be running as a Republican. I just don't know if Liz Cheney could capture the Republican base. I don't know if there is anybody who could capture the Republican base like a Donald Trump could. Has anyone heard Barron talk? I don't know what he sounds like. It's super weird. He probably has a kind of a thick accent because he spent most of his time being around Melania. Things like that are picked up. When you're around somebody who talks a specific way, you think they're speaking the way it's supposed to sound. How have we never heard his voice though? In part because during his entire last administration and a chunk of the Biden administration, he was a minor. And most people kind of had a hands-off rule about minors, that they would leave the minor children alone. So I think that was part of it. He only turned 18 recently. MAGA is already a liability with down-ballot candidates. Yeah. They just said that his mother are training him to look strong. That's why he doesn't smile. Yeah, Trump doesn't smile either. I think it's because he's never happy. All right. Yeah, he was a minor. Hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I think that was part of it. I know a lot of content creators that kind of came out and just said, look, he's a minor. We'll attack the adult children, that's fine, but he's a minor. Now, once he turned 18 and he started putting himself into politics a little bit and started getting out there just a little bit, then they're like, okay, he's fair game. But all right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Some of you have been here quite a long time, been doing this almost an hour and 45 minutes. And some of you have been here almost the entirety of the time. So I thank you for doing that. For those of you that came in late and want to catch the whole thing, I do record all my lives. This will be up over on my YouTube page. I am Analytical Iowan on YouTube as well. There is a link in my bio. This will be up sometime tomorrow. However long it takes YouTube to not be dumb and finish the upload process. And I want to give a thank you to TJ, my great moderator. I think he's still out there somewhere. And I will catch you the next time I am live. All right. So just got done wrapping up. It was a great live. So yeah, it was a great live. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I am going to keep doing these. Don't know into how often, but I'm going to keep going live because I enjoy it. I enjoy the interaction and everything, and I know you guys enjoy it over here on YouTube as well, catching it after. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch it, and I will catch you the next live.